Okay, we're live, Enrico. Here
Here
we
we
are
go.
again.
Here we go. It was a while, but we're here.
Yeah, here we are.
Thanks for inviting me again and see how you manage this fly today. I'm sure you'll be.
Uh,
And eventually, when you're going to put on the water, you will be catching a couple of fish. How's that?
oh, yeah, yeah. I will catch a couple of fish on this fly for sure. So welcome everyone to our Fly Tying Monday. We have a very special guest today, one of the coolest guys in fly tying, Enrico Puglisi, who
Thank you.
is
Thank you, Tom.
who I think is a brilliant fly designer and fly material designer. Enrico has lots of cool stuff. If you watch any of my videos, you know that I'm a huge fan of EP Fiber and um, and the EP Trigger Point Fiber and lots of other things that the brushes that Enrico makes. They're great stuff, and some of my very favorite saltwater patterns are Enrico's. And what we're going to tie today is called the EP Spawning Shrimp, and it is my favorite go-to bonefish fly. It's a fly that I often put on at the beginning of a trip and never change because it works. And it's funny. It's also in the Orvis merchandising department. It's known as Perks Fly.
It's true.
Our chairman of the board, Perk Perkins, we have to have this fly in stock all the time because if Perk needs some, they got to be there. And Perk does a hell of a lot more bone fishing than probably anyone I know other than guides. Perk loves bone fishing. He bone fishes a lot. He's retired now, so he gets to spend even more time. And it is his go-to fly, which means a lot more than my go-to bonefish fly. And it's also reported to be a very good fly for permit with heavier eyes, of course, with solid metal eyes. Enrico, you probably got permit on this fly, right?
Yes, I have it, and yes, I've been getting the same reports as you do on permit. We all know how difficult these permits are, and one thing is presenting a crab, to those fish. Another thing is presenting a shrimp to those fish. Two different kind of a fishing. Generally talking, when you do throw a crab at the permit, you're gonna have to hit right on the head. Rather you spook the fish, or the fish is gonna see the thing going down, and it's gonna grab the crab. And then obviously, when you cast it, you don't really do any movement to the fly, because if you move the fly, the crab meaning, the fish is not interested. And on the other hand, when you do present against shrimps, then you can start to play the shrimps to induce the fish to. You have a much better chance. Let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly the all the feedback I'm being getting with this specific fly.
Yeah, it's also a very good redfish fly. Redfish eat a lot of shrimp, and it's also a very good striped bass fly on the flats. I've caught a lot of striped bass on this fly because striped bass eat a lot of shrimp. We don't see them eating shrimp because it's kind of subtle and quiet when they do, but when you see them on the flats turning on their sides and flashing,
Mm-hmm.
they're most likely taking shrimp. And a shrimp pattern is kind of a secret with a lot of striped bass anglers because not many people fish shrimp
Yeah,
patterns, but
that's
they
true.
work. They
That's true.
work. I am sure that snook under the lights would eat this fly. I've never caught snook on it, but I imagine it would be a good snook fly.
I would say yes. I did actually. I did that several years ago, and of course, best thing you can do is just remove the any eyes, lead eyes or dumbbell eyes, because you really wanted the shrimp just floating on the top, and those fishes are just gonna grab it. Because you see those under the lights, you see those shrimps. They just popping out of the water, in and out. I mean, it's a constant action with those shrimps and minnows as well. So yes, it is a really nice little flies under the lights as well for snooks.
And it's also good for carp. There are no carp or no shrimp in fresh water, except for scuds. But I don't. This doesn't look like a scud, but carp will eat this fly too for whatever reason. I don't know. They eat small invertebrates. They eat little crayfish.
Right.
But this fly will work for carp as well. So it's a great fly.
Yeah, myself, I haven't been able to try that for carp, but what they will see on the little shrimp pattern, who knows? I mean,
yeah, but it works.
But it seems that it works very well for those crops as well. Yeah.
So, Enrico, tell people how you developed this fly.
Well, sometimes is a trial and error. Because you put it together fly, and then once you start to fish with it, you get a refusal, and then you start to think about, okay, why do I'm getting this refusal? What is wrong with this fly? Is the fly himself? Is the presentation to the fly? Is the retrieving I'm doing? So you start to think about it, and then you do the adjustment, and until you realize, okay, the fly is something's wrong with the flies and needed to be adjusted. Of course, that is a fly that I took over to a different shrimp pattern. And generally talking, in my opinion, as you can see with all the other shrimp pattern I do, they are not heavily tied. So that was my mistake when I did started with this little shrimps. It was heavily tied. So I started to put less and less and less, and until I, figure out what was the right amount. So in other words, you give an illusion of a shrimps into the water. I mean, it's hard to see when we are in a boat, in a flat boat, we don't see those shrimps. So
Yeah.
if we don't see those shrimps, that means they are almost invisible to our eyes, but not to the eyes of those bonefish or permit or whatever, because a shrimps, don't matter the colors, mainly is a translucent, and that's the way to survive. Let's put it this way: a translucent, and they just blend nicely with their background, of course. So, and that's it's a matter of thinking, and then when exactly I figure out, okay, if I want to do this a little pattern, especially for bonefish and clear water, such as the Bahamas, then I really needed to go and put a very little material. So when I scaled down to the point that there was almost no materials, I say, is that possible that this fly is eventually is going to catch fish? And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And not necessarily a lot of sparkle needed to go into the fly, just enough, the little touch to catch the eyes of those fish. And that's how I end up with this spawning shrimps, and put it, spawning, of course, shrimps, they carry their eggs before the spawning. So, and the eggs can be orange, of course, as you have on the fly. I have been seeing blue eggs on the shrimps as well in the different species. And so they mainly the little orange touch into the body, it really give it the illusion of those eggs that they carry. And I think that is a color that those bonefish in permit they will trigger on. So that's pretty much what I had in my mind, and that's what I did it. So fortunately enough, he's doing the job. And yes, as you said, it doesn't matter whether you're fishing for bonefish with a little fly. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I was very lucky to going towards that direction now to put together the fly. With the right amount of the materials and the right amount of the flash and so forth and so on.
So should we tie one?
Yeah, why not? Let's
All
get.
right, you talk me through it. You gonna help me?
You know?
You can help me out.
Of course, of
So,
course.
oh, by the way, shameless plug. This pattern is in the Orvis fly tying guide in great detail. Let's see if I can find it here. It's toward the end. I put it in here because it's probably one of the most difficult bonefish flies to tie. So I did step-by-step instructions with Enrico's help, obviously, and it talks about Enrico in here. Has a picture of Enrico somewhere. I don't know. You're in here somewhere. No, you're not in here. You're in the other book.
Okay.
You're in the other book. But anyway, I figured if you can tie this bonefish fly, you can tie nearly anyone because it does have a few steps more than most bonefish flies. Most bonefish flies are very straightforward, and this one's a little trickier.
Yeah.
You have to make things difficult, Enrico.
Well, that's my nickname. No, just kidding.
All right, so let's put a hook in the vise, and I'm tying this on a size 4 Gamakatsu bonefish hook. I like the black hook. It's a little more subtle. And they're a good strong hook. And I'm tying on size 4 for 2 reasons. One is that in April I'm going permit fishing, and that's a good size for permit. And my favorite place to go bone fishing is in the Bahamas, and size 4 is kind of standard. They use bigger flies in the Bahamas, so I'm going to tie it on a size 4 hook. You could tie it on a 2, 4, 6. You could tie it on a size 8. I wouldn't want to. This would be a difficult fly in a size 8.
But also you can do in size 1, which is
okay.
Is a bigger one.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger, and for what I understand, you go in the Bahamas and you can fish the bigger size with larger dumbbell eyes for those bigger fish. We're talking about those of 12, 14 pounders. So I think that will be the right size for those fish on that depth water.
All right, so the thread is a 6/0 or 8/0 bright orange thread. I'm going to start my thread and then just leave that for a minute. How am I doing so far, Enrico?
So far, so good.
And then I'm going to take some of Enrico's EP silky fiber. You could use any orange yarn.
Absolutely.
You use any orange yarn you want, and I'm going to grab about that much, maybe.
Yeah,
that's too much.
It seems to be a little bit too much, but
All right. I'll cut it back a little bit.
Yeah.
How's that? Better?
That's better.
All right. Okay. I'll cut that off. And I'm just going to even both ends off a little bit. This is going to be my egg sac. Oh, I should tie this in upside down, shouldn't I? I should have the hook inverted here.
I would say yes. I mean, generally, Tom, the way I started that fly, I started with laying a thread to the hook shank and putting the eyes, rather if it's a dumbbell or eyes. That's the way I started. But you can go away too. That's
okay. I'll put the eyes in now.
Tom, we have a question from Mark, and Enrico, this might be for you instead. But Mark's asking if a dark hook is better for bonefish.
Honestly, I don't know. One thing I can tell you is that the majority of the people, they prefer black hook because they say if they're using a silver hook, it's too shiny, it might scare the fish away. Personally, I haven't been catching bonefish and permit on either hook. So I would say it's a matter of a preference. And the black, it seems to be less shiny, so that might do a better job. But let's put this on the prospect. If a fish will never it will ever understand the meaning of a hook, we will never catch any fish. Period. So I'll leave it up that way. How does that sound?
That sounds good to me. We got one more question that came up
Yeah.
while I'm here. Paul's asking if you would tie it in other colors other than tan. And I'll let you get back to tying after that.
I'm sorry. Repeat my question.
Colors other than tan.
Yeah, would you tie it in colors other than tan?
Yes, I do. I do like a clear one and a very pale olive.
Nice.
And also you can do a very pale pink. So those are mainly the colors, but in reality, the tan it really covers them all. So
All right, so I'm going to take a couple of medium bead chain eyes. Oh, one of the things you're absolutely going to need with this fly is a pair of cutters. You don't want to use your scissors, and a pair of pliers, small pliers, to do various things. So I'm cutting 2 eyes off the bunch. And now I got to reverse my hook again, Enrico. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to put the eyes on first. I typically put the eyes on quite a bit later, but we'll do it the Enrico way.
no, either way will work. I just
No, we'll do it. We're going to do it your way. We're going to forget about it. We're going to do it your way. Okay, so I'm going to lay the eyes, and I'm going to come back from the eye about an eye length, because I'm going to put a weed guard on this, so I need a little room there. And I'm going to cross over, and then I'm going to push the eyes back to center them, and I'm crossing the other way, and I'm going to make a bunch of turns here. Tight turns. You want to really tighten your thread. You should not need glue to keep these eyes in place. And the secret is, once you get those eyes in there with those cross threads, to come around those threads to lock them in place with a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you're creating a shoulder that the eye will not move. So that's
once you do that, that eye will not move. So you can put a drop of glue in there if it makes you feel better, but you don't need to. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the fly upside down. And I'm going to take that orange yarn that I prepared. I'm going to come back a little bit. I'm going to fold it over the hook, bring it in, and first I'm going to take one side and wind back to the bend. About there, Enrico?
You can do another turn.
Another turn? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Another turn. How's that?
You see the way the egg sac is going towards the bend of the hook, meaning going up a little bit. And not
okay, you want it to go up. So I'll come even a couple more.
There you go. Good.
All right. And then I'm going to take that other piece and I'm going to fold it around to the far side so that this encircles the hook. And I'm going to lock that in place there and then come back and bind that down. And that's never coming out.
Nope.
Never, ever when you do it that way. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I am going to cut it right about there, Enrico.
Yep. Yes.
Right about there. Nice sharp cut. And that's going to leave me my little egg sac. Okay. Next. Now we could do the rest of the fly right side up. Except for, I like the weed guard upside down, but we'll do the rest of it right side up. Okay. So what's next? Eyes. So you have two choices for eyes. You can you can pay Enrico a lot of money to buy pre-made eyes.
You are a
These are-
bet. You bet
these are-
now.
These are pre-made shrimp eyes, and I like to use them because making your own eyes is a pain. But I will show you. I'm not going to show you how I make them because it takes too long. But I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you about making eyes. Whoops. So I've made some eyes here, and what I do is I take a piece of monofilament, about 40 pound, 30, 40 pound, and let me show it to you in the close-up. And I burn the end so I get a little knob there. And then I take some black nail polish and I goop that on the end of that little nub that I burned and let it dry. And then I dip them in UV cure epoxy to build it up a little bit and to strengthen it. Now, if you have black UV cure epoxy, you can skip the nail polish step, and then you can make your own eyes. But they're a pain to make. They're time consuming. I'd rather buy them. But one of the things, if you make your own eyes, they're a royal pain when you put them down to dry. And I have found that what's great for this, because you can't, if you hold them in forceps, you can only do one at a time, and you want to do these in a batch. So what I do is I use this, this removable blue putty that you find around the house or whatever, and I stick my eyes in there in between steps as they dry. So.
Well, I would like to tell you the way I do the eyes.
Yeah, how do you do them? How do you do them? Yeah,
and exactly the way you do them. It may be a little bit different, but it's the same principle. I burn the monofilament first to do the little pupil, and then I dip that in black paint, and I have to wait until they dry. Once they dry, basically the day after, pretty much, and then I do epoxy.
Oh, you do this? You do it the same way?
The same way, but I'm using a black paint and I'm using epoxy. Epoxy is very strong, and once it dries, it stays there forever. So it's basically it's a 3-step to create these eyes. I mean, they are really, really time consuming.
They are. Now, how do you hold the eyes when they're drying? What do you do?
You could easily, get one of those double side tape.
Yeah. Oh.
You put alongside of your desk and just
put
in there.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Roger's asking, when you were talking about the nail polish, if you could use a black Sharpie instead.
Yeah, sure. I think you could. Yeah. Okay. The black nail polish is a little shinier, so it makes them look a little glossier. But yeah, you could use a Sharpie, sure. And sometimes when you burn those eyes, they turn black anyways.
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's put some eyes on here. So I got a couple of them here that I made up. My time-consuming eyes, and I'll take those over to my vise. And you want your eyes to extend just beyond the egg sac, right, Enrico?
Yes.
So I'm going to hold it there alongside, and then I'm going to take a pair of pliers, and I'm going to grab them at the tie-in point, like so. And then I'm going to crimp this monofilament flat. It makes them easier to tie in. And then I'll take my other one and I will line it up. Piece of hair stuck on there. I will line it up with the other one. And I will crimp it in the same place. Okay. And-
Edward has a question for Enrico. They're asking, when you tie in the eyes, do you allow them to curve outward, or do you have a certain preference of direction?
My preference goes having those eyes going up towards the bend of the hook.
Hmm.
You know, when you reverse the fly. But if they're going straight, it's not a really big deal. The big deal is having those eyes. You know, I believe that those eyes makes the difference when you do this little guy.
Hmm.
So I'm going to start with my far side, and I'm going to cut this a little shorter.
We have
Make it
another
easy.
question on the eyes. Matt's asking, just curious as to why you would use gold bead chain eyes instead of black, since you're using a black hook instead of a silver one.
That's a very good question. I make them gold because Enrico makes them gold, and the fly works. But shrimp don't have eyes at their tail. We use the eyes for weight, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but the fly works.
Well, yes, we do put the eyes, the dumbbell or lead for weight. So one thing that you should keep in your mind, if you have a black eyes, the one Tom is putting in right now, or whatever you're using on the back, a dumbbell or lead eyes, it's a good idea not to put a black dumbbell or black bead chain. If that will make the difference or not, honestly, I don't know. But I think it makes a lot of sense to have the fish concentrating on those beautiful eyes that Tom did it over there. See, nice and black. And
now, I don't know about you, Enrico, but I like to take some turns to keep the eyes separated because
okay.
I find that they come together too much.
Can I give you a tip?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you see, you tie those eyes on top of the hook shank.
Right.
If you're going to tie the eyes on sideways of the hook,
Yeah.
they automatically they will be splitted, so you don't have to worry about putting threads in between.
Oh, I did tie them in on the side. The top kind of came top kind of came up, but they were tied in on the side.
Yeah, maybe I didn't see.
Yeah.
Totally over here.
But I still like to take a figure 8 turn.
Definitely will. Doesn't hurt. It definitely will. It will keep them apart. That's for sure.
Yeah. See, now they're
Yeah,
split apart better.
there you
Okay, so I'm just going to come forward and bind those down a little bit more, and then using not my scissors to cut this heavy mono, but my pliers or snips to cut that. Okay, how's it looking so far?
So far, so good.
Yeah, lots of time to screw up.
Eh,
Okay, so next is my flash. So I'm going to take some crystal flash, pearl crystal flash, about, I don't know, what, 4 strands?
four
Double,
strands. Yeah,
4 strands,
you know.
4, 3, 4, 5, something around there. Not too many strands. And where's my scissors? There. I'll cut these. Get rid of them. Wet them just to keep them together. I will fold them. Notice I brought my thread back to kind of the midpoint. I'll fold these over the thread, lift up on top. And again, these are never going to come out because they're double locked down. And I'll come all the way back to where my egg sac starts. And then these are going to kind of be the legs, part of the legs. Right about there, Enrico?
A little bit longer.
A little bit longer. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Cut those off. Let's turn this because we're going to put some antennae. Now we need our antennae. And for that, we use one strand of black Flashabou. What a mess. I'm going to just take one strand of black Flashabou. Like so. Come back. Wind back a little bit to there. Fold the black Flashabou strand over the thread. Static electricity. Keeps wanting to stick to me. There we go. And then I will place that on the top. And I will bring that straight back over the top of the crystal flash. And then you want these longer.
Right.
About where you can see there.
Yeah.
How far back?
Well,
that long?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, let's remember, Tom, I suggested to cut those crystal flash a little bit longer. Same thing over there with the antenna.
Yeah.
But at the end, when you're done with the fly, and if you feel like that they're a little bit too long, you can always trim it. But
Yeah.
if they're short, and then you feel like they should have been longer, then there's nothing you can do about it. That's the
Okay. Then you got to forget about it.
Exactly.
Okay. So I got my antennae on there. Now we're going to come forward again, and we're going to put some rubber legs on there. And I have, get rid of that mess of Flashabou, some silly legs. Get rid of the eyes. How many silly legs?
I do 2 strands double, so that's plenty.
2 strands. Okay. I've been using 3. I'm going to have to go and cut all my flies.
If you've been using 3, I've been catching fish. Stick it with 3. Don't follow me.
No. The fish will know. The fish will
Yeah,
know
right.
if I don't use the same amount as Enrico. So I've got just 2 strands of rubber legs. And I'll do the same folding technique. I will fold the rubber legs over the thread in the center, bring them down to the top, and bind those down, pulling them toward me a little bit so they stay centered. And then let's come back here. And these should be a little longer than the crystal flash, but shorter than the antennae, right?
Yeah, you can go right in the middle.
Right in the middle, right there?
Yeah, between the 2, yeah.
Right there. Oops, I didn't get them all. I got to be careful because I'm getting my...
You know what? It will look nice.
What?
You already cut those 2, right?
No, I didn't. They're just shorter.
The first 2. You can cut 2 one length and the other 2 a little bit longer. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. So these will be shorter because those 2 are longer. How's that?
Beautiful.
Okay. Oh, one of them's what?
And as I say, at the end, you can always trim it a little bit,
Yeah, true. Okay. Now, the carapace, I think the hardest part. And I'm gonna just clean this up a little bit and bind this down so I have a nice smooth base. All right. So now the carapace.
Okay.
The carapace is tied with EP fiber.
Now let me see how you manage that.
Yeah. Here's my question that I always, how do you measure the amount you need? Because you need the top bunch a little bit longer than the bottom bunch, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So what measurement do you start with on the fly? What do you use for a measurement to cut your piece of
First, first, let me see whether you will start with the canopy, and then I'll give you a little hint.
all right, I'll start with the carapace. All right, so here's my EP fiber, standard EP fiber, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I have so many different EP fibers.
Never enough.
And I'm going to take not too much, right?
Correct.
Is that
It's
too much?
Yeah, half
Too
of that.
much.
Half of that.
Half of that. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So this much.
Let me see. I cannot really see it.
Here's my finger.
How much do you want to cut it? 1 inch and a half or 1 inch or what?
I'm going to cut it long because I'm going to have to cut it shorter, right? I'm going to cut it long first. Let's go over to the fly. All right. So how do I want to measure this even before I taper it? How long do I want the piece to be?
Okay. Let's say that what you have in your finger is like what, an inch and a half, inch and a quarter, pretty much.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Let's say that you cut it inch and a half. Cut an inch and a half.
Just cut it right there.
Cut it 1 inch and a half. That piece, you cut an inch and a half.
I gotta get a friggin' ruler, Enrico. I gotta go.
Use your eyes. I mean, the fish don't got a ruler over there.
Okay, I'll cut it here. How's that?
Got it.
I'll cut it there. Actually, I'm gonna go back to the wider camera because we want to taper these ends.
Right. You're gonna taper.
And to taper the ends, you just kind of pull it and roll it.
And
is that how you do it?
Pull on each side, a little bit on each side.
Yeah, pull on each side a little bit.
Okay.
How's that? Good taper?
That's good.
Okay.
Good. So now you're gonna go around the threads like you did it with the crystal flash.
Yeah.
And then you don't put it in the middle. You're gonna put it like let's say 3/4 and 1/4. Can you see that? Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. And I want the short one to go down first.
Exactly. That's exactly the way you're gonna be doing the taper and the measure of the cut.
Okay, so that's the top, and then I fold, or that's the bottom, then I fold the top over.
It should be longer. See that?
Yeah, yeah.
And doing that, there is no need to trim or do nothing, pretty much. There you have it.
How does that look for a carapace?
Terrific. Better than mine, I can tell you that much.
No. Not better than yours.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
So now we're going to make a dubbing loop. And actually, I'm going to bring this other camera over here so people can see that a little bit better.
You might want to give another 1 or 2 turn over the carapace just to make sure it stay on place.
Okay.
And then you do your loop.
Okay. So I'm going to do a loop. Go around there because it's got a big wide opening there. I'm just going to go around to lock that in. And then wind forward, get that out of the way, wax my thread. And then you use chopped up angel hair. I'm just gonna use actually I'm gonna put my dubbing spinner in there. Let it hang against the bobbin so it doesn't spin. And then I'm going to take some, I'm going to use ice dubbing instead of chopped up.
Either way, it will work. You know,
Yeah, and this is a nice
Yeah, absolutely.
UV color, very sparkly, but not overly flashy.
Yeah.
And so then I'm going to use this big camera again, the wider camera. So I'm going to put my finger in there to hold it open. And I'm going to sparsely apply this. You don't want a lot, right?
No.
I'm going to just distribute that through there. And maybe a little bit more. Hopefully that's enough. I'll put a little bit more in there just in case. Oh, I lost my loop. There we go. And then I'm going to spin my dubbing loop, or spin my dubbing spinner, and then release the pressure there, and that'll spin right around there. And I like to pull some of the longer fibers out of there.
Cool.
We have a couple questions. Keith is
Yes.
asking, is this the preferred size of the fly, or can it be tied smaller?
It can be tied. I wouldn't tie it smaller than a 6. This is a 4.
Okay.
A size 8 would be really, really difficult in this fly, I think. I don't know about you, Enrico.
It is kind of small, 8, and I don't think it's necessarily an 8 if we go fishing for bonefish.
Yeah.
It's size 6 is plenty.
Sometimes in Belize, you need 8s.
But those are the small fish. You're looking for the bigger one, right, Tom?
Yeah, but sometimes there aren't any bigger ones.
And
Okay,
the second question is Steve's asking, can you sub the EP fiber for Icelandic sheep hair?
Maybe.
Wow, that's looking
Never
good.
tried. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple more turns on that dubbing just to make sure it's secure. And this is at this point, I usually put my eyes on, but my eyes are already on, so I don't have to worry about that.
There you go. It looks fishy already as it is, Tom.
Yeah, it would. I'm sure it would fish well, just the way it is. So now I'm going to get my EP brush. This is the shrimp brush. And this is 2-inch. And I think it's a little bit long. But this is what I have. I didn't have any. I think this would be better for a size 4. I would think do you make shrimp brush in 1 inch?
We do the 0.75 on the same brush, Tom.
Yeah, 0.75 would be a better, but
This is what I have. Originally, I started with that. I mean, this is the original one. It's been out there from day one when I did a little shrimp, and then people they've been contacting me. You know, they're having a little bit problem doing the smaller flies. You know,
yeah,
and say, okay, fellows, we'll do the smaller version, and actually they've been doing quite well. I mean,
yeah,
it will be perfect.
So I'm just gonna tweak a few fibers off there. So I gotta have a piece of bare wire to tie down. Don't need that much wire. And then I am going to tie in this piece of wire. To right up behind the eyes. And then I like about 2 turns, 2.5 turns, Enrico. What do you think?
That's all you needed. You really don't need
Yeah.
a lot. Otherwise, it will be overdressed.
Yeah, so I'm going to stroke these fibers back. And you want a little space in between there. You don't want to tie it. Just 1 and then 2.
Yes.
How's that look?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'll just pull these fibers apart here so I can tie this off.
You have a little brush, Andy?
Oh, I have an EP finger brush. Are you kidding me? I was panicking this morning. I couldn't find my finger brush. I couldn't find my EP finger brush.
There you go.
This is a great tool. And then you can brush this back. You can use Velcro too. You can use
Yes,
a Velcro on a popsicle stick or whatever you normally use. But I love this finger brush. It works really well. And then get it on the bottom. So you can see that's pretty sparse because it's going to sink better. If you make it too heavy, it's not going to sink that well.
Exactly. And it needs to be sparse. It needed to be translucent.
Yeah,
that's the key.
Okay, I'm just going to adjust my camera because I'm going to finish this upside down. And I see that piece of wire is still sticking up there, so I'm just going to bind it down. There. Okay. Now I'm going to come forward and I'm going to go right to the eye. All the way up to the eye, right to it. And then I'm going to take a piece of 25-pound monofilament. You could use 30, 35. Doesn't matter that much. I like 25. And I tie my weed guard a little bit different than you. Something I learned, a method I learned from Aaron Adams.
Yeah, let me see.
That works quite well. There it goes. So I'm going to cut a piece of this off. Just a, length about like that. And then I'm going to take my little pliers and I'm going to crimp this. Just give it one crimp in the middle, like so that I can fold that into a V, like that. You'll see that better in the close-up. So now I've got my V, and I'm going to pull that right up to the eye, and then I'm going to wind back over that toward the eyes. Nice tight turns. And often you'll find they cross over each other. And I want those to be in a V. So you can just take your thread and figure 8 behind them to separate them a little bit. That also helps to hold them in place. Now they're separated. You can see that. So I've got those 2 pieces sticking up. And then I'm going to, a little tough to see here with that monofilament, but I'm going to pull them up. Get out of there. I'll pull them up and cut them just a little bit above the hook, like so. And most people leave it here. There's their there's their weed guard. I'm going to pull them apart a little bit more. One of the things I'd advise you to do is to, before you fish this, the weed guard will often get misaligned or bunged out of place. So every time you fish a fly with a weed guard, you want to check it and just put it in place, kind of tweak it a little bit to get it in place. And what I like to do is right above the hook point, I will bend that over. And I'll do it on both sides. Almost at 90 degrees. So now, a little difficult to see. See if I can adjust the light to get that to show better. Can't really. But yeah, you can see there, you can see those are going to protect that hook when it slides through weeds, or more importantly, over a piece of coral. But because you bent those, let's see if I can get those hairs out of the way so you can see that better. Maybe now you can see the weed guard. Yeah, now you can see the weed guard better. So by bending those, it'll slide over a weed, but there's very little pressure that's needed. So it's not it doesn't, it doesn't have very far to go once a fish grabs it for the fish to get impaled on there, yet it'll still slide through weeds and hopefully not hook you on some gravel. So now all it's left to do is to finish the head a little bit. Whip finish.
I see you using the tool, huh?
Yeah, I like the tool. You do it by hand?
Yes.
Yeah. And then make sure your weed guard is where you want it. You can tweak it a little bit to maybe pull it apart, make sure it's protecting that hook point. And once that is set, you put your glue on there. And this is your UV cure. And you cure it. Give it a quick pulse. And then another quick pulse so that you don't heat that up and move those weed guards out of position, because sometimes that epoxy will heat up and it'll move the weed guard. So give it a quick pulse first and then come through and finish it. And there is, now finally got to give it another brush. There is the EP spawning shrimp in all its glory.
Great.
Best bonefish
Great.
fly in the world.
Great. You did a pretty good job, Tom.
Thank you, Enrico.
I
had a good teacher.
Nah, I don't teach. I share what I've been learning myself all these years. So you're gonna go putting the fly in the water sometimes in next spring?
Oh, yeah, April.
Yeah, it's great.
April, maybe before. Who knows?
Well, we'll see. Excellent. It was a really nice being with you and sharing information, of course, and opinions and little tricks. I hope everyone enjoyed and made it a little bit easier this way. Tom, you did really took your time and going step by step, and I'm sure many people will take advantage of that.
Oh yeah, Paul asked a good question. What range size eyes would you tie it in? Paul, that's a really good question, because the most important part of choosing a bonefish fly is having different weights, because depth and the sink rate of the fly is so important. You want some either very small bead chain eyes or even no eyes for very, very shallow fish, so that doesn't make a big splash and it doesn't sink so fast if fish are in really shallow water. Then you want a, kind of a medium size bead eyes. And, sometimes I will tie these in 3 sizes of bead eyes, small, medium, large. And, these are a medium eye here. And then I'll tie some with solid metal or lead eyes for permit and for really deep fish. I find that for bone fishing, I don't use the lead eyes very often because they're just too heavy for most bonefish flats. And they will sometimes scare the bonefish. But for, if there's going to be permit around, or if they're bonefish in very deep water, like maybe in Hawaii, where there are a lot of deep water bonefish, then you might want some with the lead or the solid metal eyes. So, if you're tying any bonefish fly, make sure you're better off having one pattern and 3 or 4 sink rates than a half a dozen different patterns. Bonefish are not that selective. They're not that picky about what they eat. They eat almost anything. They eat worms and clams, and they eat bait fish. They eat crabs. They eat all kinds. They eat basically anything that moves. So they're not that particularly fussy. There are certain flies that are better in certain areas, certainly, but much more important to have the right sink rate than a whole bunch of patterns.
I agree with that.
And if you're going to have one bonefish fly, I'll tell you, this is the one to have. Take it from Perk Perkins. Don't take it from me. Take it from Perk Perkins. All right. Well, that's great. Do we have any other questions? It doesn't look like it. Julia, did we miss any?
Mark just asked what type of retrieve for this fly.
Oh, whatever retrieve it appeals to the bonefish. Generally, it's a couple of twitches and then a stop. Let it drop. A couple twitches and then let it drop. And one of the most important things is that if you see, it's all visual with bonefish. When you see the bonefish, it's really committing for the fly. It's speeding up and going for the fly. You've got to stop, because you need to let them inhale that fly. They're not used to going something that pulls back, that's attached to something. And when they stop and inhale something, they expect it to come into their mouth. So you got to stop. And then once the bonefish commits, strip strike. One long strip. But sometimes this very slow crawl will work, just barely inching it along. Sometimes a really fast, aggressive retrieve. You have to read the fish. You have to read the fish's body language, and it's going to vary with every place you go and every day and every fish. But that stop is really important before you strike, to make sure the fish gets it in its mouth.
I would like to add something into that, if I can.
Yes, absolutely.
When you're retrieving a fly, it doesn't matter if it's a shrimp flies or a crab or a bait fish. You just have to understand the speed of the bait fish, or the shrimps in this case. And one strip of your hand, if you strip it 3 feet, in one shot, that is already too much, because the little shrimps over there, it could never make that kind of jump of 3 feet. If you know what I mean, Tom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Explain myself in a logical way. So we have to think about the shrimps, how fast they jump, and how fast really they can run away from the bonefish. So that is the right way to put in our mind what kind of retrieve I'm going to do to that specific one.
Mm-hmm. And you learn a lot when you're on the flats by just shuffling along and looking down in the water and seeing how the crabs move, how the shrimp move, and what they look like when they're moving. Because crabs don't look like crabs when they're swimming. They look like They look like a woolly bugger when they're swimming.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
look. And some shrimp, like I don't know, the mantis shrimp, looks like a leech when it's swimming. So, you want to imitate, you want to get an impression of something as it's fleeing from a predator, not the way it looks sitting on the bottom.
Yep.
And that's why this fly doesn't look exactly like a shrimp, but in the water when it's wet. And no, I'm not going to get this wet. All I have here is some cherry juice, and I'm not gonna put my fly in the cherry juice. So sorry, Matt.
Yeah,
You'll have to tie one and get it wet yourself.
there you go.
All right, Enrico. Thank you so much. It's always fun talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me again, and hopefully we will see each other some other time soon.
I hope so. And thank you for all the tips.
Anytime.
All right, everyone. We will see you. We will see you next Monday. I think it's a tie-off, isn't it, Julia, with Flagler? And we're tying. We're tying a depth charge checkmate nymph next Monday. It's going to be the
Cool.
monthly competition
All
with
right.
Tim Flagler. All right, everyone. We'll see you soon, and thanks.
Bye.